Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Q&A session today. We are joined by our two highly experienced migration agents, Mr. Vaibhav Patel and Tejas Patel. Mr. Vaibhav is the director of Aussizz Group Sydney and a registered migration agent, one of the most established migration agents in Sydney area. Mr. Vaibhav is an expert in general skill migration visas, global talent visa, and handling skill assessment requirements for a broad spectrum of occupations. Having helped countless migrants settle in Australia, Mr. Vaibhav is a trailblazer in immigration consulting. And we have Mr. Tejas, who is one of our stellar registered migration agents heading Aussizz Group in South Australia. An industry pundit bursting with insights on immigration policies and trends, Mr. Tejas is a credible voice in the industry, guiding countless immigrants towards their ultimate goal of PR. Vocal on his social media platforms, Mr. Tejas is passionate about connecting prospective immigrants with the right information and the advice at the right time. This session is being recorded. Okay, let's start with the questions now. We already have a few questions coming in. So we have a question from K2. She says, I did Bachelor of Civil Engineering in India, and right now I'm doing MBA in Sydney and get COA of MBA in Adelaide to complete my half study. So which is the best way to get PR if I want to upgrade myself in civil engineering field?
Okay, I'll take this question. So, Ketu, you have a civil engineering from a bachelor's in civil engineering from India. So what I would suggest is first thing that you should do is apply for a skills assessment as a civil engineer. Now, if you are intending to live in Sydney and continue to study here, then you can apply for a skill visa in Sydney. And if you see recent invitation rounds where people with even 75 or 80 points has also been invited for a subclass 190 nomination. So I would suggest that you should focus on your English and CCL test, and also try and complete your course that you're studying so that you can apply for a state nomination for 190. Or if you're intending to complete your course in Adelaide, then what Adelaide state nomination criteria says is that you have to complete a course which is relevant to your nominated occupation in Adelaide and at a level where according to your occupation, right? So AQF level for your occupation is bachelor degree or higher, then it has to be a bachelor degree or higher. And then you have to at least, depending on the work experience requirement, I think there might be a 3 months of work experience requirement in your nominated occupation. I guess Tejas can put in more lights on civil engineering requirement for South Australia, Tejas.
Yes, sure. So I think any engineering graduates, they just need to have 6 months of experience. So if you're talking about civil engineering or structural engineering, if you talk about 491 program, you just need to have 6 months of experience in your nominated occupation or close related occupations in South Australia, at least 20 hours a week for 491 nomination.
So Tejas, does it apply to the graduates as well who complete a degree in civil, let's say related to civil engineering in South Australia?
No, so then they will be falling under the different pathway, which is called essay graduate pathway. Under the essay graduate pathway, the applicant requires to have at least a year of qualification or more from South Australia, and then post-qualification 3 months of experience in the nominated or close related occupation.
Over to you, Adam.
Alrighty. We have Ujjain who wants to know if he studies a diploma of nursing in Adelaide, what are the pathways for him in South Australia?
Ujjain, there will be 2 pathways you're looking at. If you stay in Adelaide, then obviously post-qualification, you can apply for your 491. To apply for 491, you need to have 2 requirements met, any of them. Number 1 is 3 months of post-qualification experience as an enrolled nurse, 20 hours a week. Or you can also work as a personal care worker for 18 months while you're doing your diploma of nursing. If you're looking for 190 in particular, then you need to work 12 months of post-qualification experience as an enrolled nurse in the regional area. Regional area does not include Adelaide, so it will be outside of Greater Adelaide. So these are your 2 pathways.
Thank you for your insights on that, Tejas. Our next question is from Nusrat Islam, who is working in the social work field in Central Coast. His skill assessment has been completed. Her the husband is abroad and is doing CPA for his skill assessment, and together they can complete 85 points in total. What is the best option for them to get their PR under the 190 category?
I think Nusrat, right? Is it?
Yes, that's right.
So Nusrat, you have a skills assessment in social as a social worker, which is on a primary or priority migration skill occupation list. So, and also I think NSW is going to follow the same occupation list eventually. So what happens is your occupation is also on in priority for a subclass 189 visa as well as the 190 visa. So your chances of getting an invitation through both the channels are very good. But because you're living and working in in the regional area, which is Central Coast, you can also apply for a 491 in case if you do not get an invite. This one depending on the competition, depending on the cutoff, how the how the department invites, and depending on what is the cutoff that time. So if you think that you're not likely to get an invite in 189 and 190, depending on cutoff, then you can also access the 491 visa.
I think Agam, we just missed a few questions, so I can quickly cover up if you want. I think Satinder was asking what is the requirement of skill assessment if they can do the skill assessment without experience or PY. So Satinder, there is no requirement of PY or experience for accounting skill assessment. You just need to have 7 each in academic IELTS or PT. If you want to get this full skill assessment done from CP or IP or CA. If you can't get 7 each, then only you have to get professional program done to get your skill assessment from any of these bodies. I think there is 482 questions from Delini. If you want to cover quickly, Vaibhav.
Sure. So the question, yeah, you can read the question again.
Yeah. So she's asking if do we need 2 years of full-time work experience for applying 482 employer sponsorship visa as an accountant from Melbourne?
So yes, Dilini. So for a 482 visa, the requirement is that you have to have at least 2 years of full-time work experience or equivalent part-time work experience. That means that if you have 2 years of work experience on a part-time visa, that becomes 1 year full-time. So in that case, you will need 4 years part-time to qualify. But if you have a 2 years full-time, you qualify for a 482 directly under the employer sponsorship category. Now, regarding the for 482 visa, you also need a company which has an annual turnover of 1 million as well as 5 employees working in the company. So you have, and this criteria is at the time of decision. So what we generally suggest is, let's say if you're missing by a few months. So let's say, for example, a candidate has 18 months or 20 months already as in the nominated occupation. Now their visa is expiring very soon. Let's say maybe they are on 485 visa and their visa is expiring very soon. In that case, what we generally suggest is lodge a sponsorship, lodge a nomination, lodge the visa, and then obviously there is a processing time, maybe 3 to 4 months time. So during this processing time, if you complete the 6 months, the total 20 months, so you you still complete the 2 years before they decide on your application, you still qualify. So the criteria is at the time of decision.
There's another question from Archie. He says, I want to come back to Australia. I'm in India and my TR expired. I want to apply for 189 or 190 visa.
Archie, to be honest, there's not much information you have given here. We don't know what's your occupation. We don't know how many points you have and all those factors. So I think it will be better if you can either post those information or you can contact one of our migration agents in any of our offices and they can help you out with that.
Okay, and there is a question from Mashuk. It's addressed to Tejas. I am a graduate from Adelaide University. I have my skilled assessment as an external auditor and accountant both. I've been living in Adelaide for more than 6 years and currently I've been working as an accountant for last 3 months. I have a proficient level of English. My point is now 80. Could you please tell me if there is any chance for me to get 190 or 491?
Masuk, obviously, you have a good chance with 190. You have to meet at least these 2 requirements. Try to have your employment at least full time, if possible, 35 hours a week, and then you need to have at least 12 months of experience if you wish to get 190. If you're happy with 491, then obviously 20 hours a week or part-time experience is okay. But if you are very persistent about 190 itself, then you should be aiming to get the employment in full-time manner and also 12 months experience required.
All right. Our next question is from Raju. He is currently in India. His employer transfers his salary into his account, and he has the pay slips for it as well. And he also has it mentioned with the income tax department. However, he does not have any PF deductions. Will that be a problem for him?
I don't think if you don't get provident fund, let's say because your employer is not complying with their country's law, that's completely fine because you still have an evidence that you worked in your nominated occupation. Yes, obviously we prefer to have more documents, like your superannuation or provident fund, your bank statements, your taxation records, your work reference letters. So in this case, you'll have work reference letters, pay slips, bank statements because your salary is coming in your bank account. You would have probably lodged a tax returns as well. So you have all the proof that you are working in your nominated occupation for your company. So that actually justifies that yes, you have worked in your field, and then you can still go ahead with the application without having the provident.
Thank you for that, Vaibhav. Our next question is from 𝐲𝐬𝐬𝐬. She studied a Master's of Construction Project Management from Geelong in Victoria, and her occupation is quantity surveying, FROK, and she has 90 points. Her student visa is expiring in August 2021. Is it a good idea for her to get a 189 visa, or what's her other option?
Liz, would you like to take this question?
Yep, sure. So, sorry, I think I've just scrolled down by mistake. I'll just go back to that question.
I'll take the question then.
Yes, if you can.
So you have I'm assuming that you have a skills assessment as a quantity surveyor. Now, quantity surveyor has a 90 points for 189. It's a very good chances. Number one for 189. Number two for 190 because you've studied and lived in regional Victoria. So then you can also qualify for a 190 nomination if you're working as a quantity surveyor. The requirement is that you have to be working 6 months in your field to qualify for the quantity survey, the nomination from the Victoria for a subclass 190 visa. And if you're working for 3 months, you can qualify for a 491 nomination. So in all cases, you still qualify for 189, 190, or 491, and you still have a very good chances. If your visa is expiring in August 2021 and you've completed a master's degree, you can also apply for a 485 visa. That will give you another 2 years stay in Australia to work full time.
Alrighty. Next one is from Fateh. He asked, can I go back to my country after applying for 485 visa and get a bridging visa B? Will the 485 visa be granted while he is offshore? And can he work from offshore with that 485 visa?
Yes, he can. So number one, you can get a bridging visa B, go offshore. You can get the visa granted offshore. And also, you can work from offshore on the 485 visa because, anyways, even if you don't have the visa, you can work from offshore because technically you're not in Australia, so the Australian law does not apply to you. So the company who is employing you will be probably paying you as let's say a freelancer or a subcontractor overseas. So that's completely fine. And whenever the border is open, you can still use the 485 to enter Australia.
All right, thank you, Vaibhav. Lax is asking us, he's confused between South Australia and NSW, sorry. He is coming on 2 years TR visa in October this year. Which is a better state for him to move to for 491 visa? Currently working as a PCA in aged care, but occupation is business analyst residing in Victoria.
Yes.
Lex, you're putting yourself into a very difficult situation, to be honest, because you're comparing two different states with different level of employment opportunities in your occupation. So if you're talking about business analyst opportunities in South Australia, state nomination point of view, then you will be required to have 12 months of experience in any of the ICT occupation as a closed related occupation experience. Any occupation which is assessed by ACS will be considered as a closed related occupation experience, which means you need to basically have 12 months of experience in Adelaide. When you talk about New South Wales, obviously New South Wales would work towards employment points. It's a very competitive process, especially as a business or system analyst. I'm sure Vaibhav will agree with that. It really depends on the amount of points you have and what kind of job opportunities you get. You have to decide between either South Australia or New South Wales.
Thank you, Tejas. Next question is from Ashmeet. She says, I'm pursuing BSc Biotech in India. Is there any chance I could continue my degree in Australia when they call onshore? And also she has messaged again. And if I complete my BSc Biotech in India, what are the PR pathways after that?
Sorry, just looking at the question. So they completed a Bachelor's of Science in Biotechnology from India. What are the chances for a PR? And what was the other part of the question?
If she wants to continue her degree in Australia when they call people onshore.
If you have not completed your degree from overseas, or if you're studying already from overseas, yes, you can always get an enrollment in Australia with any university and apply for the admission. And if you get an admission, you can start studying overseas, and whenever the borders open, you can obviously apply for a student visa as well. You can get the student visa granted and keep studying offshore. Whenever the borders open, you simply take a flight, come to Australia and start studying here. And with PR pathways, you can apply for a skills assessment as a biotechnologist. You need minimum 1 year of work experience. But as of now, Australia is not inviting people who are offshore. So none of the state has a programs for offshore candidates right now, and not even the Department of Home Affairs where is inviting many applicants from offshore at the moment. But however, 189 you can still get an invitation, because with 189 it's an automated system. Nobody has a control over the location. So I'm assuming that they will still invite people for 189, but 190 and 491 is not possible because most of the state has closed their offshore programs.
The next question is again addressed to Vaibhav. It's from Vishal Yadav. He says, my nominated occupation is business analyst in Sydney. I'm finishing PY next month and have 75 points, excluding extra 10 for PTE, 8 each, and 5 NATI score. What should I do, and when can I start my PR process with Vaibhav?
I would suggest, Vishal, yes, we can start the PR process. We can start the skills assessment. We can start doing all those things. But you need to focus. So you need to know whether you can get this English language score or not. You can pass the NATI test or not. If you think you can you can pass those exams, both of them, and you can reach to 90 points, yes, you should stay and wait in Sydney. And also, I would still recommend trying to find a job in your nominated occupation. But we can start with the skills assessment and everything else, lodge your EOI, and then keep updating it as you get the English language score and CCL test. And if you don't think you can get this score, then we can discuss about moving to another state, like let's say moving to South Australia or moving to Canberra, depending on what is your interest and what you can do in each state.
Thank you for the insights, Vaibhav. Our next question is from Maria. She says, I have applied for the family-sponsored 491 visa on Skill Select tool since more than a year. I've got 90 points. My brother lives in Victoria. Why is it taking so long?
Maria, to be honest, I'm not sure what's your occupation and stuff, but at the moment, there is no 491 invites except some of the critical sector occupations, which were invited in month of April. So there will be another round in July, upcoming July. But to be very honest, the number of invites will be again very low. So even if you have 90 points, 90 is not a very competitive points for 491 relative sponsorship, because that means you might have only 75 as independent points. So a lot of people would have 95, 100, 105 points as well. So it really depends on your occupation. Then you should have a plan B. You should not just rely on 491 relative sponsorship. You should have a plan B of 491 state sponsorship or 190 or any other option.
Alrighty. Our next question relates to employer-sponsored visa for the 186 direct entry stream. Shembaga wants to know, do we need PTE scores for this? If so, what is the score range accepted?
You need the PTE score. You need minimum 50 in each module or equivalent score in IELTS or other exams. Like for IELTS, you need IELTS 6 each. In general or academic, doesn't matter. For subclass 186, you also need, under direct entry stream, you also need a positive skills assessment in your nominated occupation, as well as 3 years of full-time work experience.
All right, thanks for that, Weber. If you're looking for PT coaching, we have dropped the links for our PT tutorial apps as well as for our coaching. So do check that out and you can prepare for that while also working on your 186 application. Our next question is from Ronald Robin. He has completed his master's in mechanical engineering from Ballarat, regional Victoria. Is it possible for me to go to Tasmania to apply for the 491 state nomination program? And after getting my 491, is it possible for me to visit India? At the moment, I'm having 75 points. I haven't done any PY yet.
So Ronald, definitely you can transfer yourself to Tasmania and apply for 491 if you meet the Tasmanian requirement, which is normally 6 months of employment from Tasmanian employer in your nominated occupation. In regards to traveling offshore, yes, you can travel as many as time you want on 491 as long as you meet that requirements, basically your residential requirement of 3 years and your income requirements for your further 191 visa after 3 years. In regards to each year, how many times you can travel multiple times as long as you do not cross, I guess, a normal visit, normal visiting travel duration. I would not expect you to travel for 6 months, 12 months, all those kind of things during that 5 years of 491 visa duration.
Thank you, Tejas. Dilini wants to know about NT state sponsorship. I'm doing advanced diploma of project management and she has a skill assessment in accounting. And she recently found out that she recently found an accounting job as well. Her visa expires next year in May. What's the possibility of getting a 190 visa? And what commitment do you need to fulfill?
Dalini, you need to show that. So for 190, the criteria is that you have to show that you have studied there for 2 years. And after studying 2 years in NT, you have been living there and working there for 6 months as well, full time. So I guess it will be challenging for you to get a 190. But if you have been living there for 12 months already, and if you work 6 months in your occupation, you can easily get a 491. That doesn't mean that you cannot apply for 190. You can request the NT government to consider your application for a 190. But if they do not consider you for 190, definitely they will consider you for a 491. Now, in regards to the commitment, let's say you're living there already for a long time. Minimum requirement is 12 months to qualify for 491, and for 190 is minimum 2 years. Now, if you have been living there, that is already your commitment to live in NT. Apart from that, you have to write down a commitment statement. You have to also show the job offer or an employment contract, as well as evidence of you trying to find a job in occupation if you don't have one.
Thank you, Vaibhav. Vain Shripati is doing his JRP for skill assessment as a carpenter. He is midway through and is finishing in November. His visa is going to expire in January 2022. And he wants to do a 407 training visa. How much is it going to cost? And does he need to provide an overseas police clearance certificate or an Australian federal police check? And is it better for him to go for a student visa or a 407 training visa? Currently, he's residing in Sydney. Is there any chance for him to get a 190 state nomination in NSW in this upcoming financial year? And he currently has only 2 months left of his 485 visa after finishing the JRP. He is also considering moving to Canberra. Suggest the best options for him.
Tejas, would you like to take this question?
I can, yeah, definitely. So in terms of 407, you're already doing job ready programs, so you can definitely apply for the 407, but I'm not sure if that's going to be a right visa for you or not. It really depends on your overall circumstances and your employer's obviously circumstances as well. So you can choose depending on that. In terms of your 190 visa options, I'm sure Vaibhav can share more insights on that, but most of the focus on 190 program from Treasury New South Wales has been ICT occupation and engineering occupations primarily. As I mentioned earlier in my session in afternoon, obviously state migration depends on your labor market, as in local feedback from the employer and all this kind of thing. So each state decide which occupation they would like to include in their migration program, depending on feedback they receive from the industry. So carpentry, I don't think so. It's in the critical sector for New South Wales Treasury for 190 program. So if you're looking for 190, you should explore a different option. That would be my suggestion here. In regards to moving to Canberra, yes, you can explore that option. But again, Canberra has their own matrix point system. So you would require to stay there for a longer time if you are wanting to apply for 190 itself in Canberra, because the point system for Canberra metrics will be depending on how long you've been staying in Canberra, what kind of job experience you have in Canberra, what kind of assets or other you have in Canberra as well. So you have to consider all those options. Best would be if you book an appointment with Vipo in Sydney. He will be able to guide you through.
Thank you, Tejas. Next question is from Ravi. He says, I have 90 plus 5 points in computer networks and system engineer, living in Sydney RDA, and have only 5 months experience as help desk support, which is closely related, and so many people are getting invited in the same field with the same point, but I have no luck. Please advise me. Even people got invited today as well when there is no official invitation round.
So Ravi, there is no official invitation round dates anyways for the 190 New South Wales. So if the state has the seats available, they will again re-invite people, definitely. Now, what you need to do is obviously see the number one. I'm assuming that you're doing your application on your own. When you do certain applications on your own, and you miss small details, applying, you're not likely to get an invite. Like, let's say I'm not sure how you lodged an EUI, whether you selected. I had a client who lodged an EUI himself and didn't get an invitation, and his friend lodged it with us. He got an invitation. He came back to us saying that my friend got it who lodged it through you. I lodged it myself. I didn't get it. So we checked his EUI and found out that there was an error in his EUI, and therefore he did not get an invitation. Right. So I'm sure that yes, a lot of people have been invited with 90 plus 5 points, and I'm sure that you have made some sort of error, if I'm not wrong. Or if there is no error in your EOI, then there could be another reason is that because you have selected computer network and systems engineer only as your skills assessment. The reason is because we generally request last cutoff for computer network and systems engineer was at 95 plus 5, not 90 plus. So I haven't seen anybody getting an invite at 90 plus 5 in computer network and systems engineer. But there are other occupations which you could get an assessment in to qualify. Now, also you mentioned that you're working in Sydney RDA, and living and working in Sydney RDA. So that means you're working in regional New South Wales, right, in Sydney RDA. Then in the new financial year, when the RDA reopens for a state nomination program, or you can even check with them right now. But then it's a bit late now because it's the last day of the financial year. They won't probably nominate you now. But if they do nominate you for the state nomination for 491 in the new financial year, because they require you to complete 12 months of work experience in the regional New South Wales. But even if you complete the 6 months or 3 months, then you can still go to the RDA, speak to the RDA saying that, see, I've been doing this already. I haven't completed 12 months, but can you nominate me for a 491? And they would also consider you for this application. But I'm sure that you need to work into your case, improvise your case a little bit, or check your EOI, recheck your EOIs as well to make sure that there is no error in your EOI.
Okay, so the next question is from Vinod Reddy. He says, I've completed my master's in IT. What are the best pathway for software background? I have 2 years experience.
Did we miss any questions in between? I think no. Okay. In terms of software engineering, obviously, if you have 2 years of experience, you can explore options through employer-sponsored visa 482, which can also lead you towards 186 itself, which is a direct, obviously, ENS through either direct stream or transitional stream, whatever suits your employer and yourself. In regards to the state nomination, I think New South Wales, South Australia, even Victoria eventually will be sponsoring most of the ICT occupations, so you can explore what's going to be the new financial year program from any of these states. If you have already an employment, you can explore either in New South Wales, South Australia, or Victoria for your state nomination. And once you reach to 3 years experience, you can explore your options in 186 ENS as well.
Thank you. Another question is from Lux. He says, hi, I'm planning to apply for NSW 190 visa. Can I get a skill assessment for geotechnical engineering if I don't have work experience, but have 3 academic projects, which includes my PhD work, which I'm currently undertaking?
Yes, Lux, you can apply for a skills assessment because geotechnical engineering is assessed by Engineers Australia, and Engineers Australia does not require to have the work experience as a company. As long as your project reports that you are providing are related to geotechnical engineering, then yes, certainly you can apply for a skills assessment in that occupation, and you're likely to get a positive skills assessment outcome as well.
Thank you. So the next question is from Sampath. He says, hi, what's your opinion for telecommunication technologist who is currently living in Victoria? Currently, I am on 485 visa. I have 1 year remaining.
Sampath, Victoria was nominating most of the engineering technologist occupations before COVID actually hit. There is a good chance that Victoria might be bringing all those engineering occupations or other related occupations on this skill migration program in the new financial year. To be honest, it really depends on how Victorian Department of Immigration will be deciding on the next 12 months of migration program. We have to wait for that. As soon as they announce, you can explore your options, but it has a good chances. This occupation has good chances in regional Victoria or also South Australia, as well as New South Wales. So you can explore other options if eventually Victoria does not include this occupation on the list.
Okay, Apurva Soni is asking that I'm currently doing my Master of Research from Sydney, have 2 semesters left. I've done my MPA plus MBA and currently on 85 points. I have 2 years of experience in accounting and currently working in the accounting field only. In addition, my brother, who is an Australian citizen and lives in Queensland, what are the options for me in the current scenario? Shall I move to Tasmania or stay in NSW and move to regional?
Apurva, in this case, first thing is that you only have 85 points, which is not enough for 189 or 190 in New South Wales, right? So the first question is very clear that that you should move. Now, where is, let's say you have an option because you have a brother in. So second option you have is obviously speak to your employer because you've been working for 2 years as an accountant. So speak to your employer if they want to sponsor you for a 482 and later on 186 visa. So that will lead to a permanent visa. Now that accounting is also on a priority occupation list, your chances of getting a 482 and 186 is comparatively higher as well. Now, your brother is living in Queensland. So if you purchase a business in regional Queensland and run that business for 6 months, invest $100,000, you can also secure a 491 under the small business owner category in Queensland. Alternative options is obviously Tasmania as well, that go and study there for 1 year or work there for 6 months full-time in a skill occupation, which is in demand in Tasmania. Your chances of getting a nomination from Tasmania for 491 is also higher. Or the last case scenario, if you want to stay in New South Wales, move to regional New South Wales and work at least 12 months in nominated occupation and in accounting basically. And then after 12 months, obviously, but as I said before as well, that what we do is generally 3 to 6 months later, we request this body to see if they can nominate the applicant straight away. You don't have to wait for the entire 12 months to complete, right? So you have these 4 or 5 options that you can consider, and depending on your individual choice and your circumstances, your choice of state, choice of living, moving where you want to move, whether you can invest money or not, depending on those factors, you can make your decision now.
Thank you, Vaibhav. The next question is from Bhumika. She says, I've recently completed my master's in IT from James Cook University and graduated in March. I was in Queensland for more than 2 years. I got a job as an analyst in Sydney while I was on bridging visa. It is a full-time opportunity and I've moved to Sydney for the job. Currently, I'm on a bridging visa and wanted to know the possibilities of PR and how should I proceed now? Which state should I consider? Thanks.
You're already in the right state, Bhumika. I think you already have a job, which is pretty good. I think the only thing you need to work on now is increasing your points to make sure your EOI is very competitive against other EOIs. So if you have close to 90, 95 or 100 points, you have a good chance to get invited from New South Wales if you're currently already employed in the field. So you're already in the right state. Just work on improving on the EOI points and then go and see Vaibhav. He will look after you.
And also, I would like to add a couple of things. As you said, you completed recently Masters of IT. That means you may not have studied professional year. So we would also recommend you to start the professional year because it will give you 5 points, number one. And you mentioned that you studied in a regional Queensland. So you will get extra 5 points for studying in regional Queensland too. Now that you have a job, it will also add up 5 points from there as well. So you just have to focus on your CCL, PY, and the English language test.
Yep, pretty much. So I think there are a lot of links given on our chat for CCL professional program as well as the IELTS or PT practice. So you can just go through them, have maximum points, which is if you are meeting the age bracket, then you should reach to 95 points without any employment points, as long as you're single. And then you can have additional points for your employment as well. So you have very good chances to get invited from New South Wales itself.
Thank you, Tejas and Vaibhav. Our next guest, Souvik, wants to know about NSW. Social worker is added in the 491 Sydney regional list. His fiance is in Sydney working for 3 months as a social worker and waiting for 485 temporary residence grant. What is the category 2 and 3 for 491? And is there any possibility to get 190 invitation? ACT, is it accepted in any occupation to get 491 or 190 application if you have prior occupation experience and is willing to move to ACT?
So Souvik, if you have a social worker skills assessment and you're working in Sydney for 3 months, then as I mentioned earlier as well that you can apply for a 189 EOI. Yes, for 190 right now, NSW is not nominating. If you or your partner is working in regional New South Wales in your nominated occupation, you can also qualify for the 491 nomination. Now for 190, it's very hard to judge whether that will be added or not. But because it's on a priority occupation list, there are possibilities that it can be added on the list, right? With Canberra, I've just checked your occupation is on the list for Canberra, social worker. So if you go and work there for 6 months, you don't have to work in your nominated occupation. Yes, but then you get extra points if you work in your nominated occupation in Canberra matrix. But if for 491 or for 190, if you move to Canberra and work there for 6 months full time for 190 visa, or if you work there for 3 months part time for 491 visa, you can lodge in a Canberra matrix and wait for the invite from Canberra.
Thank you so much, Vaibhav. Our next question is from someone offshore. He's a pharmacist in India and working with a research center for the last 6 years in formulation and development department. Is there any chance for him to apply for his PR in Australia?
To be honest, offshore migration is pretty much on hold at the moment. So the best option he can look for is to employer sponsorship. If he has a very good experience, employer who can sponsor him, then he can look into that option. In regards to the skill migration, he will have to wait until obviously each state comes up with state migration programs, and then what are the new guidelines in terms of their entry requirements for the state nominations and how soon they will be restarting the offshore nominations. But as of now, I think the only option he or she can look for is employer sponsorship.
Alrighty. Another guest, Mohan, wants to know, he has lodged his EOI for 189 as an engineering technologist with 90 points, and he submitted this in December of 2020. He will gain 5 more points in the next year. Can he expect an invitation? He has seen that other engineering professions were invited at 90 points in April 2021. Date of effect was May 2020 under 189 visa category.
Yes, Mohan. So that's what I was just going to mention as well, that in 189 visa, if you see the report from April 2021, the invitation round says that the last person invited with the engineering technologist at 90 points who lodged an UI in May 2020, right? And you mentioned that you lodged a UI in December 2020. So if you see that, if you see the pattern and if the department continues to invite, let's say there will be another invitation round, most likely on 21st of July. And if the department continues to invite engineering technologists, the cutoff can even go further. So definitely, the queue will move forward, and then the chances of getting the invite is better already. And also, as you said, you're going to add up 5 more points very soon. So if you add up the points, obviously you'll jump the queue, and from 90 to you jump to 90.5 points bracket. That will also improvise your chances of getting the invitation. So in both cases, you have very good chances to get an invite in 189. But I would also suggest because 189 is not a location specific at all. So I would also suggest look into the state nomination program as well, so that you have plan A and plan B running at the same time.
Thank you, Weber. We actually have someone who's inquiring about engineering technologists once again. Gopi has 75 points for 189 and 80 points for 190 as an offshore applicant as well. He has attached some screenshots of his. He has 10 years of work experience offshore, working as a land design engineer on Jaguar Land Rover cars. And is closely associated as a mechanical engineer. He had done his Master of Engineering in Automotive Product Development from Deakin University, Geelong campus. And he has about 10 years, this was about 10 years ago, and now he's working in India. What is his case like?
Tejas, would you like to take this question, or I can take this?
You can, that's fine.
Okay, so Gopi, because you have 75 points, obviously your cutoff, if you see, first thing is cutoff is very high at the moment, is 90 or plus. So that's where you're finding it challenging, number one. And also another factor is because you're offshore. If you see, as Tejas also mentioned before, that offshore migration is currently on hold. Not many states or not many invitations being sent for an offshore candidates. And also another factor that for 189 is that you have less points. In both cases, you're finding it challenging. So the solution that you can find, because you have 10 years of experience, number one, look for an employer if you can find an employer. Number two, wait for offshore state nomination programs to open. As soon as they open, see which state is nominating. Most likely regional 491 in New South Wales will be as well as soon as the borders open up and the pandemic situation gets under control. Number three, you can also seek for a state nomination from Victoria once or maybe email Victorian government to see if they can nominate you as well, because you studied in regional Victoria maybe 10 years ago as well. So considering all these factors, I would suggest look into the overall options that you have. But right now, the only option I think that you can see is applying for an employer sponsorship visa unless the offshore migration programs opens up again.
Thank you, Weber. The next question is from Raju again. He says, thank you for answering my previous question. Which state are best for chemical engineers or chemical engineering technologists?
Raju, it really depends where you are right now, but at the moment, obviously, South Australia is sponsoring chemical engineering as well as engineering technologist. You need 6 months of experience in the field or close-related occupation, as in close-related experience. You can also explore similar options in Northern Territory, Tasmania as well. But in terms of the bigger states, most of them are not sponsoring at the moment. It can change down the track once with the new financial year's migration program will be announced.
The next question is from Abdullah. He says, I have recently completed my MSc in Industrial Engineering from Perth. Previously, I've done mechanical engineering I think he means Bachelor's of Mechanical Engineering, and I'll be assessing my bachelor's. The question is, what points should I gather to apply 190 in Western Australia?
So for 190 Western Australia, obviously your points does matter, but I'm assuming that you have completed your master's, and you mentioned you completed master's in industrial engineering from Perth itself. And so if you do have a job offer in Perth, your chances of getting 190 is really good. So I highly recommend that you contact our local branch there in Perth, and I'm sure that they'll be able to help you with the nomination options. And your profile is really good, but obviously the more points you have, the better chances you have, because Western Australia do rank people based on the points as well when it comes to the program. But people with master's degree from Western Australia are given priority as well.
The next.
Also, I'd like to just bring to your attention, I think Ravi has some question as well that he has put in. So Ravi, your question was that people have, and some other company has, you mentioned the screenshot as well. But see, honestly, we haven't seen, I have received in total around 200 plus invitations in last 1 to 1.5 months in all the invitations, and we haven't seen even a single invitation for a computer network and systems engineer with 90 plus 5 points. Now, yes, I can see, I'm not saying this company is lying, but according to our records, we have many clients at the same points, and they haven't got the invite in computer network and systems engineer. But as I said, we generally work on improvising the cases and ensure that they have other avenues as well, other options running on at the same time, so that if they don't get an invite in CNSC, they can get an invitation in some other occupation. Like, let's say you can also apply for a skills assessment as a network administrator. Now tomorrow, if NSW wants to invite that network administrator, they might even do that. So what I'm saying is that you should try and get more assessments and then try that. But again, if you're doing this kind of applications on your own, you miss small details, and as I said, there might be a chances that you might made an error in your EOI. You missed something that is causing a delay in your invite, right? But with this screenshot, we don't really. This is not an authenticated information. Migration agencies has put in the screenshot, but it doesn't really say what points. Doesn't say what occupations. That is the screenshot that has the text on it. It is written by them, and there could be an error as well. So as I said, but we've got almost 200 invitations in last 1 month or so, and we haven't seen even one invitation. We had a client last client who had an invite in CNSC was 95 plus 5.
Thank you. So the next question is from Viren. He says, can I apply for the project builder occupation if my study is Bachelor in Construction Technology, 4 years course, 1 year training?
It really depends on where you are right now in terms of which state can sponsor you for this occupation. But in regards to having the experience assessed, you would require post-study experience of 12 months. Because your occupation will be assessed through wet assess. So you require 12 months of at least 20 hours a week experience to get your skill assessment done, and then eventually you can apply for your 491 or 190, depending on which state you're working in right now.
Thank you, Tejas. So the next question is from Afreen. It's addressed for you. Hi, Tejas. This is Afreen here. I'm from South Australia, Adelaide. I have completed my certificate 3-4 and diploma. Recently, I've applied for TRA for 485. My visa is expiring in August. Then I will be on bridging. My query is, can I do any course like childcare certificate 3 online, as childcare course is having placement as well? As I have job ready program. In relation to job ready program, what is the correct time to do after my 485 visa is granted or after my TRA outcome is there?
So Afrin, you can do online studies on a graduate visa, or you can do obviously on-campus face-to-face study as well. In regards to time for your TRA process, the job ready program process, you should be starting something as soon as you get your first step done, which is a provisional skill assessment, because eventually you're going to get only 18 months of graduate visa, and then you have to have 12 months of job ready program done within that 18 months. And also after completing the job ready program, you have to still secure your skill assess, the state nomination as well. So you should be having as much as time possible on your 485 after having a skill assessment to make sure you do your state nomination process smoothly. So yeah, if you have a job, you should be starting your JRP as soon as you get your provisional skill assessment outcome and you are on a right visa. Yeah.
All right. The next question is from Aarti. She says, hi, I have finished my master's in IT from Sydney NSW. I'm in India and has filed a divorce case. My 485 visa has got expired. I have just 75 points. I want to apply for 189 and 190. How can I be able to get back to Australia?
So Aarti, in this case, first, number one is obviously 189 and 190 from offshore is not really prospective, and especially at 75 points. So the first thing that you have to work is coming back to Australia. Now, to come back to Australia, the only way is to apply for a student visa. And whenever the borders open up, you can simply and then come in. With 189 and 190, after you come to Australia, we can work on the state nomination programs like for New South Wales or any other regional area as well, depending on where you would like to move.
Okay, so the next question is from Pavandeep, who says, course completed, not on the list. What will be the best course to do and which state? Currently on 485.
Pavandeep, it really depends on your two things. Obviously, your overall academic profile and also your experience, as in the work experience profile. So the reason I say that obviously is because you can choose either a course which is more in line with your previous qualifications, or you can choose a course which is more towards your experience so far. A lot of people do work in different industries after coming to Australia, and then eventually they develop their interest in those areas, and there will be a genuine shortage in those industries, which can lead you towards the permanent residency. So one of the common example is, let's say, cook or chef. A lot of international students work as a chef while they're studying the master's or bachelor program, eventually develop interest, and then they study Cert 3, Cert 4 in commercial cookery or automotive or anything in particular, and then eventually they get the state nomination or employer-sponsored visas in the same field. So these are the two factors you should be considering before you choose your next course here.
Thank you, Tejas. I can see there are a lot of people raising their hands and typing in questions. Guys, please be aware, raising hands is not going to help. Just leave your questions in the comments below. And we're trying to work through it as much as possible. I know we had the Q&A as well yesterday, and we may not have been able to cover it. We'll definitely try and cover as many questions as we can. I know it ends at 6 o'clock, but don't worry, we won't end at sharp 6. We'll continue answering questions. And even if your questions are not covered in today's webinar, don't worry, we have your contact details. When you registered, our consultants will be getting in touch with you personally. So none of your queries are going to go unanswered. You will be taken care of. All right. Agam, over to you. You can take over the next question.
Thanks, Vadi. So the next question is from Sobek. I think he's asking 3 questions in one question. So there's it is a big one. So it's, I think, related to partner visa. Hi, I have applied 189 from offshore as a single. My fiance, social worker, 3 months experiences in Sydney, applying for 485 TR. I have 90 points in cartographer under PMSOL. We didn't physically meet. We are in distance relationship for last 2 years, but we are always connected on video call, chat with family as well. Both of us help each other in every circumstance. I met her family and both of her families agreed, but until she comes to India, we can't get married. So the first question is there any possibility for Australian government online marriage or registry marriage from Australia or India? Do you want me to go one by one, or do you want me to read through?
Yes, that's fine. I'll answer this question. So number one, see, marriage is, I guess, I'm not too familiar with the marriage law, obviously, but as long as I know that online marriage in India is not allowed, so Australia will accept if the marriage is accepted in your country, basically. So if the online marriage is allowed in India, yes, you can accept, they will accept the online marriage here. But generally, the government, when you apply for a visa, they want you to see at least that you have met once in a lifetime, but yes, if the online marriage is valid in India, it will be accepted here.
The second question is, can I travel to Australia in any visa and stay together simultaneously? My 189 and her 189, 190 can also move on, as I and she can show married.
Yes, so you can apply for a student visa, number one, or you can also apply for a visitor visa. But as of now, as you understand that there is a border closure, so you might not be able to travel even if you get the visa. But yes, you can apply for a student visa. Even if you get married, let's say, you can also apply for the 485 dependent visa as well as a visitor visa. Any of these 3 options to use to come to Australia, but you still have to wait for the borders to open.
I think it answers the third question as well, which is, I'm scared, when shall I move together and get married as I'm in India? What is the best possible way to move together?
Right, yeah, so the same answer again, that you have to, apply for some visa that allows you to get into Australia, but most of the visas that you will get, you still have to wait for the borders to open.
Okay, so the next question is from Roshali, who's asking, what will be the working rights if I'm on bridging visa for 485 after my student visa?
So for a 485 bridging, so basically you have applied for a student visa. What will be the working rights if I'm on a bridging visa for 485? So for a bridging visa for a 485 visa has a full-time work rights, because it doesn't matter you are on a student visa, you completed your course and you applied for a 485. So the bridging visa associated with the 485 will have the full-time benefits.
Thanks, Vaibhav. Next question is from Cheryl, who is asking, I'm an overseas dentist and a postgraduate of public health from University of Wollongong. I live and work in Sydney as a practice manager. Will I be able to apply for primary health organizer manager? If not, what are my PR options?
So Cheryl, I think I answered your question yesterday in our community services session as well. So if you're working as a practice manager with GP clinic, which is established clinic, then after your Masters of Public Health, you should be able to get your skill assessment done as long as you meet the requirement as mentioned by the vet assess. Once you get the skill assessment done, then you need to explore if New South Wales will be sponsoring you for 190 or 491, depending on your location, depending on your points, multiple factors involved there. But yeah, you should be starting with the skill assessment process first, and then you can explore what options you have.
Thank you, Tejas. Irshad wants to know, I got my 489 visa, family sponsored last year in October 2020. And now to apply for PR, I have to leave 1 year and show 1 year experience, but I'm not doing any job currently. So please advise me what I should do.
So Irshad, you have to live in a regional area for at least 2 years. And out of that 2 years, you have to work 1 year full time, right? So if you're not able to find a job, you can even drive Uber, let's say, or you can move to another regional area. Like, let's say, for example, according to your visa grant, if Melbourne is also a regional, I'm sure that Melbourne is a regional area under the family sponsorship at the time your visa was granted. So you have to see what regional areas applies to you, because from in last, I think in November 2019, there were some changes. So you have to see which regional area applies to you, and you can move between the regional areas, right? And even if you drive Uber is fine, so you don't have to work in a nominated occupation. So I guess, living 2 years is not an issue. Just working 1 year, as I said, you can do any job. You just have to show that you're at least 35 hours per week.
Thank you for the insights, Vaibhav. Next question from Ramesh Bhandari. Offshore chance at the age of 44 as an accountant. He has 75 points at the moment without any nomination. What about any chances for 491 for him?
Very, very slim chances, to be honest, because before he turns 45, there's very less likely chance. Most of the states will be resuming their offshore migration program because of the international border closures from Australia. In regards to the visa options, I think the only way he can secure a PR before he turns 45 is through ENS, if he has an employer who can apply ENS direct entry for him. Other than that, the other visa options, 491 or 189, 190 are very slim.
Alrighty. Next is from Gurpreet. What is the best option in social worker field? Finished her Masters of Social Work. Should she move to NSW or Adelaide?
So for a social worker, if you have a skills assessment, New South Wales doesn't have a 190 option open. So I would either suggest moving to Adelaide or a regional New South Wales or Canberra. They have a better options to apply, get a nomination. But if your target is 190, maybe Canberra is a better option. If you are happy with 491, then regional New South Wales or Adelaide is better option.
Alrighty. Next question is from Inayat. What are the PR options for Bachelor of Biomedical Science in Victoria?
Biomedical science, at the moment, to be honest, the way Victoria was nominating, they were obviously completely focused on the critical sector occupation as well. So it really depends if you have any skill assessment or not. But if your qualification is in bioscience, I don't think you will be able to get the skill assessment without any experience. So the first target you need to focus on is getting a job to get a skill assessment, unless and until you are from engineering background, which is biomedical engineering, and you can get the skill assessment done on that grounds. So if you're completely from bioscience background, you would be required to work towards getting a skill assessment done. Once you have a skill assessment, then only you can explore what options you have, either based in Victoria or interstate for 190 or 491 visa program.
I guess they just maybe, if I'm not wrong, they can apply for a skills assessment as a medical laboratory technician if you have 2 years of work experience.
Yep.
And if you can get a skills assessment as a medical lab technician, And if you're working in Victoria in medical lab technician, and obviously we can justify that you're helping fight COVID, then in your ROI, then your chances of getting the nomination from Victoria is still good. But if you need to have 2 years of work experience.
Yeah, so I think that's the main goal should be that getting a job to get the skill assessment done. That would be primary requirement for him. I think I've seen a few comments that people are asking about skipping the questions or not answering those questions. I think both our hosts are trying their best to look after your questions, but keep in mind, because a lot of people are posting the same questions again and again, and that's why it's creating an issue by skipping some of the questions. But I'm sure Riddhi and Agam is trying their best to look after all the questions as much as we can.
Yes, thank you, Tejas. In fact, the next question is for you as well, from Vikas. He's from Delhi. He's practicing as a tax advocate and is a CA finalist from ICAI in Delhi. He's looking for migration options. What are the best pathways for him?
Look, to be honest, at the moment, state nominations are very uncertain. So you should be looking at, if you are a very good accountant or CA from offshore, get in touch with good accounting or finance firms through LinkedIn or through different platforms. Try to secure an employer sponsorship. If you have an employer who can sponsor you, then you can get a priority under the PMSOL, because accountant and finance occupation, some of them are under the PMSOL as announced recently. So you can get the visa fast-tracked, and also you can come to Australia even if the borders are closed. As long as you have visa granted, you'll be getting the travel exemption approval.
All right, our next question is also related to accountants. Although this one has studied in Western Australia, has 85 points at the moment, is a tax accountant. What are the chances of him getting his PR in Western Australia?
Chances of getting at 85 points is really good. If you look at our Facebook page, we had posted reports from the recent invitation rounds on our Facebook page. And if you see the cutoff, your chances are still good, but if you can increase your points, it's going to be much better, and you need to have a job offer. So if you've studied in Western Australia, your chances are good. But if you're not in Western Australia, then don't go there. If you've studied in Western Australia, go there, and your chances are still good.
I think the Western Australia has closed the occupation accountant just for now, but they will be eventually reopening in the future.
All right. Thank you so much, Tejas and Weber. Una wants to know about early childhood teaching course. She will apply for 485 visa. She has only 55 points at the moment. She's thinking to move to other states. Which is the best state for her to get her PR?
Look, early childhood, it depends on your overall experience, but because of the change of assessment authority, unless and until you get the assessment as an early childhood teacher, then you can expect an invite from one of the states, including South Australia or Northern Territory or anything in particular. But if you're talking about childcare related occupations, then you would have to meet the longer experience requirement to get the skill assessment done. You should be getting the skill assessment sorted first, and then you can see what are your options in terms of which states are sponsoring for your particular occupation. That's what I covered in one of our sessions earlier as well, that once you finish your studies or you are in towards your last semester, you can decide overall profile and then finalize which state suits your occupation rather than where your friends are moving. You need to decide according to your overall profile and your occupation, and do your research that which states are more suitable for you, and then you can make a move.
Thank you. 𝐴𝐻 wants to know, she's from Melbourne. Her auntie is from Melbourne and is an Australian citizen. Can she sponsor her in any way?
Excuse me, I don't have COVID, by the way. So, so your auntie can sponsor you for a subclass 491 family sponsorship if you have a skills assessment in an occupation which is on a medium and long-term skill list. This is the only way your auntie can help you.
Thank you so much, Vaibhav and Tejas. Our next guest, Dhruv, is a developer programmer with 1.5 years of experience. Current visa expiry is in April 22. Points are 90 plus 5, including the state points. What are the chances for Victoria 190 new program in the next financial year, or should he move to another state? And if so, which state should he move to?
Definitely New South Wales.
Yeah, I think it's better if you just wait for Victoria to announce the strategies or their overall view on the planning level 2021 to 22 for Victoria in particular. And then you can make a move if you have to move to New South Wales. But in regards to states, obviously you have to juggle between New South Wales and Victoria itself, because these are the two states which might offer you 190 directly, depending on the points and the longer employment.
And jokes apart, but I guess you can also change your skills assessment in software engineer, and because Victoria had nominated a lot of people in software engineering occupation, and then try for a nomination for and also your ROI has to be super strong. So I think the best idea is to contact our office in Melbourne, and then our team can help you out in writing a very good ROI explanation. So your explanation in your ROI will matter a lot.
Thank you so much for also sharing us up, Vaibhav and Tejas. Pushpinder from India wants to know, she has got 5 years of experience in the banking industry, was thinking of pursuing a postgraduate degree. What's the scope of PR after the degree? Should she choose a trade course? Would that help?
So if you've completed a bachelor degree in finance or commerce or something, then I would highly recommend that obviously you have to continue to study in the same industry. So you cannot downgrade your course. So otherwise, you're not going to get a student visa as well. But yes, you can choose some other courses, like let's say Masters of IT or Masters of Commerce, and choose these courses in states like, let's say, South Australia, for example, or Western Australia, where your chances of getting nomination, or maybe even in Northern Territory or Tasmania, where your nomination chances of getting a nomination after completing the study is very high.
Thank you, Vaibhav. The next question is from Pamodya, who says, "Hi, I'm a Bachelor of Networking graduate and planning to apply for a 491 family stream visa in Victoria Regional. My relative is in Adelaide City, so I just want to know, is that open for applicants? Is Adelaide City still regional? What is the visa cost for both main applicant and dependent? And are there any other options to apply for PR instead of this visa?"
Yes, so your question about regional, obviously South Australia whole is a regional for Australian study requirement purposes, as in regional study purposes. In regards to the state nomination in particular, state divides the program depending on Greater Adelaide and regional South Australia. But because you are not an SA graduate or you're not even working in South Australia, that does not apply to you. So if you're planning to apply a 491 relative sponsorship, then you can use your relative in South Australia to apply for your 491 relative sponsored visa. In regards to the costing, obviously the costing will be changing from tomorrow, but immigration fees is around 6,300 plus, and there will be associated cost for your medical and police clearance and everything. So I would recommend you to visit one of our Melbourne-based offices, and they can help you out with detailed planning, including the visa cost and everything.
Okay, so the next question is from Subecha, who's asking, "I'm currently studying Master of Professional Accounting in Perth. This is my last year. What are the possible options for future?"
I think, Subecha, you're still on the right track, because as I mentioned earlier, that if you're studying in Western Australia, and if you complete the course and if you have a job offer in your nominated occupation, your chances of getting the nomination for 190 or 491 is higher. So I think stick to the plan for now, unless Western Australia changes the criteria and brings something completely new where you don't seem to qualify at all.
Okay, so the next question is from Mamun, who says who is doing masters in maritime and logistics management at UTAS, Tasmania, and says, "I'm basically a marine engineer and get my overseas skill assessment in general fitter category. It is AQF3 mechanical trade certificate. My course will be finished coming November 21. What is my PR pathway possibility?"
So you can definitely apply for, I think, 190 as well as 491, being a Tasmanian graduate, as long as you are meeting 2 years of study requirement. Tasmania can nominate you for 190, being a Tasmanian graduate. and then also 491 for any reason if they can't offer you 190. You obviously have to get a skill assessment done. So you can you can get your skill assessment done from your overseas qualification and experience, and then eventually apply for your 190 through your 𝐪𝐻 qualification.
Thank you. Next question is from Khushbu, who is asking, I want to know, is there any chance of business investment in regional Victoria for PR or anything else in regional Victoria after Masters in IT?
So Khushbu, yes, if you have a business history, you can apply for a business investment in regional Victoria. But if you don't have a business history at all, and if you don't have a certain amount, like 1.5 million of net personal and business assets, then you won't qualify for a business visa. But if you have completed a master's degree in IT, then and if you work in your field in regional Victoria for at least 3 months to 6 months, then your chances of getting a nomination is still good.
There's another question from Sobek, who was asking, as I did not see any special occupation list in Victoria, is cartographer eligible to apply?
Cartographer can still apply, but again, Victoria, you're offshore, right? So because if you're offshore, Victoria is not dominating. We mentioned that earlier as well. So, if you're offshore, your options are very limited as of now, right? If you're onshore, yes, you go and live in regional Victoria or in Victoria and work in your nominated occupation for 3 months for 491 and 6 months for 190. Your chances are still good.
The next question is from Isha, who is asking that I'm an artist manager working in India. What do I need to keep in mind for pursuing the skill code? I think she's referring to arts administrator.
Your occupation will be very limited, as in the options for these particular occupations are very limited in terms of the state nomination. So to be honest, I don't have your answer right now, simply because you have to wait for the state nomination list to be coming out as well. So we really not sure how each state will be bringing their skill occupation list for offshore applications. So you really have to wait for another couple of weeks to see how the state will be prioritizing the applicants, what occupation they want to bring on the migration program, and the overall program year. So I can only answer your questions after 2 weeks, to be honest.
Okay, the next question is from Vin, who is asking that I'm studying Certificate 3 in wall and floor tiling, finishing this December. I'm applying 485 early next year. I'm living in Western Australia. When I finish job ready program, should I apply for 189 or 190 or 491?
So I guess, your occupation is likely to stay on the list in a longer run because it's a trade occupation. If you see pre-COVID situation, most of the trade occupations were on the list. So I think by the time you complete your job ready program, it will be on the list again. And if you're in Western Australia, your chances are still great, and your chances of getting 189 and 190 is higher. But yes, you can still have a 491 as a plan B.
The next question, I'm not sure if we have taken this before. It's from Sampath, who is asking, what's your opinion for telecommunication technologist who is currently living in Victoria? Currently, he's on 485 visa, and he has 1 year remaining, and he's done Bachelor of Engineering in Telecommunication in Victoria, have 1 year working experience as telecom technician, and a positive skill assessment as an engineering technologist.
Yes, Sampath, I think we covered up your question, but I'll just quickly cover it again, that it depends on if Victoria will be coming up again with your occupation as an engineering technologist occupation, and then you would be eligible to apply for 190 as long as you meet the other requirements, including being a Victorian graduate requirement. Or you can also express an interest through ROI, depending on your nature of the employment and also the overall points you can expect an invite. I would recommend you to see one of our migration agents in City or either Hawthorn or any of the offices, and then they can help you out by assessing the profile in detail.
Thank you, Tejas. The next question is from Balpreet, who is asking, Master of Social Work qualifying, just wondering, can I do the ACWA skill assessment for welfare worker instead of AASW, just in case I don't meet IELTS requirements for AASW? Any advice, please? If yes, what is the PR pathway after that?
I guess to apply for a AASW skills assessment, you will need a certain number of years, some certain work experience. Obviously, again, I hope you understand that we don't really have all the answers by heart. But yes, there are possibilities that you can apply for a skills assessment with ACWA and get your skills assessment in other occupation as a welfare worker, as you mentioned. But I think we'll have to check this profile very thoroughly before we can advise you further. And I really don't want to misguide you just because I don't really know the answer by heart right now. We can check into these things later on and then get back to you.
Yeah, so I think further to that, in terms of your qualification, you do meet the requirement for ACWA skill assessment requirements. You also meet the English requirement. You just need to have a skilled experience requirement met for ACWA skill assessment. Obviously, AASW will require you to have IELTS 7 each or similar in English, but ACWA can waive your English requirement as long as you have that qualification done in Australia. But you still have to meet the skilled experience requirement as a welfare worker to get the positive outcome from them, and then eventually you can apply for your 190 or 491.
We have another question regarding AASW. Sobik asks, what is the minimum work experience required for AASW for social worker for my fiance?
2 years.
So in terms of AASW skill assessment in particular, there is 2 different requirements. Obviously, your qualification is accredited by AASW, then you don't need any experience. You just need to have English requirement met. But if you're using overseas qualification, then they assess profile to profile depending on your subjects and your experience.
The next question is from Inayat, who is asking, what are the PR options for Bachelor of Biomedical Science in Victoria?
I think we already covered that.
We've covered, yeah. So, and the next question is from Trina, and she is asking, as I do not see any special occupation list in Victoria, is cartographer eligible to apply? I think that's also we've covered.
Yeah.
Okay, another one from Nikhat Fatima. I got my 489 family sponsored visa last year, October 2020, with Aussizz Group. So my question is to apply for PR. I must leave 1 year at my family designated area and 1 year experience in any field. But the problem is I have a baby recently and unable to do job. And also because of pandemic, there is no jobs available. Please suggest me what can I do?
So your partner can also work, because if you've got a 489 visa, under the old rules, when you apply for 887 visa, you can be a dependent applicant and your partner can be a primary applicant, and your partner can work and meet the requirement for, so you both have to live in a regional area for 2 years, and your partner can work 1 year full time, and then he can be a primary applicant for the 887 visa application. The only thing is your partner has to have at least functional English, which is IELTS 4.5 overall.
Okay, so the next question is from Disney, who is asking, what are the possible PR pathways for Bachelor of Accounting in Melbourne?
Not much, to be honest. In Victoria, not much. Regional Victoria, you can explore options if you have a good job in terms of your employer will be either focused in a critical sectors or in critical industries. You have 3 months of full-time experience, you can apply for 491, but for as long as 190 is concerned, either you can have 2 years of full-time experience on your 485, which can eventually lead to 482, the TSS employer-sponsored visa, and then eventually you can apply for 186, the employer-nominated scheme, through either direct nomination or transitional visa. But as far as 190 is concerned, Victoria, you don't have a lot of option.
The next question is from Dil Gaurav, who is asking that he's living in NSW, Albury, working as a chef, 20 hours in NSW and 20 hours in Victoria. Can you tell me what I can do to get 491 visa? I have total 75 points, including state points. I've lodged my EOI by myself. I am living here from last 4 months.
So I guess you have to, I think you should have got an invite, but I'm sure that you, again, you might have made some error again, because you have been living in Albury, and I've got a client who just recently got a nomination from Albury itself, and I think in Riverina Wagga Wagga as well. So both of them were working there for only 3 months or 6 months, and they already got a nomination from the regional body. So I'm sure that you haven't done the application in the right way. So I would suggest that you should contact the office in Sydney, and then we can help you with applying for the nomination, or at least have a consultation so you understand what are the processes. I guess you're also not clear on the process because just lodging an EOI doesn't really help. You have to also apply for a separate application.
Thank you. The next question is from Anil, who is asking, I'm a PhD holder in social work, at present working as lecturer and head of Department of Social Work in Social Work Department in college in Bangalore, India since 12 years. Before this, I had worked as a social worker in NGO for 2 years. Recently, I did IELTS and got 7. I'm married and I have 2 children in my late 30s. May I know what are the options for me to apply for PR or come to Australia?
I think I've just, so if you have 2 children who are in late 30s, I mean, I'm not sure what's your age, to be honest. So most of the skilled migration program or even employer-sponsored visa programs are limited to a certain age, which is 45 or 50 in some of the cases if they are going through a DAMA program. So if you are over age of 50, it's really hard to relocate to Australia on any of the skilled migration or employer-sponsored, except the 482 visa. The 482 visa, the TSS would not have any age limit where you can apply for your skills, your 482 if you have an employer who can sponsor you. But keep in mind, this does not lead you towards a permanent residency.
Thank you, Tejas. Our next guest, Dilini, has completed a 2 years diploma and advanced diploma in project management. The course finishes in March, which I'm assuming is in 22. But she's applying for NT state sponsorship, 2-year study criteria with an accounting skill assessment. Will she receive a regional study 5-point for project management course as she's using the accounting skill assessment for applying for the visa? Also, she has a citizen sister in ACT. Can she get any support from her side?
So your sister can sponsor you for a 491 visa, but we haven't seen anybody in accounting field getting the nomination for 491 family sponsorship in accounting occupation. So yes, your sister can help you with 15 points for 491 family sponsorship EOI, but doesn't really help you much. With the regional study for 2 years in NT, yes, doesn't matter what study you have taken, as long as you have studied a diploma or higher, and that is for 92 weeks and minimum 16 months. While studying in NT, you will get 5 extra points for studying in regional area.
Thank you, Vaibhav. I'm just scrolling through the questions. The next few we have already covered their repeat questions. Trying to find the next one.
I think it's from Dina, who is asking that my occupation is early childhood teacher. My current visa is expiring on 30th August. I'm getting 1-year job offer letter from Wagga Wagga, Riverina, and they are happy to write a letter for 408 visa as well. Do you think I should go for this or wait, as ECT is on Riverina RDA for 491 at the moment, but not sure if it will continue to be on the list?
I'll take this one. So yes, it is likely to, you should, if your visa is expiring, you should get a 408. That's not a problem. But at the same time, you can apply for a 491 nomination. Again, I guess you missed the bus. You should have applied when it was open since April 2021. So, and all this time it was open. So I'm not sure why you haven't approached the state. And you can still approach the state later on after 1st of July now and apply under the new financial year.
Thanks, Vaibhav. The next question, sorry, just give me a second. There are some repeated questions. I think it's from Parmeet, who's asking, I have 90 points as software engineer and will get 5 more points in September. What options do I have? Currently in Melbourne, should I move to NSW?
Do you want to cover that, Vaibhav?
Yes. So if you have 90 points and in IT occupation, moving to NSW definitely is going to help you. If you have a job in Victoria, you can also stick to Victoria because Victoria is also likely to nominate you if you have a job in Victoria. So, but if you can't, then yes, NSW or Canberra would be a better option for you.
Okay. Sana is coming to us with the next question. She did a Master of Public Health from Torrens and is working as a public health officer for the Department of Health in Regional Victoria. What are the benefits of working a public sector job? She wants to know about PR pathways and wants guidance.
In terms of benefits of working in a public sector, obviously it can be beneficial because obviously it's more credible employer. In regards to your assistance in terms of PR option, you still have to meet the skill assessment requirement. So you still have to go through your VET assess process if you are a public health graduate and you're working towards getting an assessment done into either health promotion officer or any of the other health related occupations. But having a public sector or employer obviously can help you towards the state nomination because your employer is more credible since you are working in the same government.
Thank you, Tejas. Our next guest wants to know, he has done a master's in business with sports management specialization, which is not on the SOL list. What will be the best course to do and in which state? And he's currently on his 485 visa.
So if you have studied Masters of Sports Management, it depends on what was your master's in, number one, right? Number two, which state you are in. So if you want to move anywhere in Australia, then obviously you can, move to many of like states because like, let's say, for example, South Australia, Tasmania, NT, Western Australia, even regional New South Wales. But it really depends on what courses you have studied so far. Number one, your question is not very clear and your information is not detailed. And number two, if you want to go for any course and you're on 485 visa, you can also take a diploma in nursing, let's say in South Australia or Tasmania or NT, and get a state nomination from as an enrolled nurse. So that's, yes, this is all I can answer based on the information you've given.
Fateh, whom we already answered earlier, wants to know, do we need to show funds to apply for 190? And if yes, what are the funds required?
No, you don't have to follow funds.
Okay. Our next guest wants to know, it's a long question. What if the regional area that you were studying in was considered a regional area when you started studying, but before you finish studies, it is not considered a regional area anymore? Will you still be able to apply for a 491 visa? That's the first part of the question.
No, because the requirement is at the time of application, when you're claiming the points, the area that you have studied must be regional area.
His next question is it allowed to undertake a professional year while having a full-time job at the same time?
Yes, you can. So if you're on 485 visa, you can still study professionally.
And the third one is, does studying an ACS accredited master's degree of artificial intelligence have a pathway to permanent residency? What occupation in the MLTSOL does AI fall under?
So it depends on the subjects as well. So only artificial intelligence wouldn't justify which occupation you can go for. But let's say if you had a programming subject, you can go for a programmer. If you had a business analyst or project management subjects, you can go for ICT business analyst or systems analyst. So you can go for multiple assessments. AI generally falls under programming as well, depending on if you had studied programming subjects. If yes, then you can go for a program.
Thank you, Weber. Our next question is about someone who has completed a diploma in hospitality management in May and has been working as a chef for 1 year in an industrial kitchen site. He's hoping to do his JRP there, but I hear I can only do it in a hotel or restaurant as a requirement. Please clarify, because getting a new job has been hard due to COVID. Is it a must to do my JRP in a restaurant or hotel?
There is no such requirement as it that you must have that employment in only the restaurant or hotel, as long as you are meeting all the skills requirement as described by TRA, which means you have to have exposure towards a fully commercial kitchen, serving to the clients, making sure you have a supervisor who is qualified to be a supervisor, and you're ticking all the boxes as required by TRA. They would be able to do your skill assessment. I've seen skill assessment as a chef or cook from even aged care sectors, in aged care facilities. So you don't really need to have a skill assessment only through restaurant or hotels.
Thank you, Tejas. Disha Patel wants to know, I have 2 years of Australian experience as a painter, but I don't have Australian qualifications in painting. So am I eligible to apply for 482 visa? And do I need skill assessment to apply for 482 in painting trade?
I will have to just check. Just give me a second, because if it is not under the mandatory skill assessment list, you don't have to. So if it is painter, painting trades worker is not on the mandatory skill assessment list. So as long as you have the 3 years of experience, because you don't have the qualification. So generally what happens is this occupation requires you to have at least 3 years of experience to substitute for the formal qualification requirement. So, but yes, you do meet the 2 years of experience requirement, and there's no particular requirement for a skills assessment for this occupation.
Our next question is from Akansha, who's looking for options for health service management. What are the options she has as she's completed this master's in health service management from University of South Australia in Adelaide, and now she's looking for a job. Currently, she's on a bridging visa.
Yep. So Akansha, it really you have two factors to consider. Obviously, what's your bachelor in, and also the master's. So if you're just using a master's qualification, then you can explore options in any of the health management occupations, including health promotion officer. To be very honest, VET-Assess will be looking at your transcript first, what kind of subjects are covered in your studies. And then you can choose which occupations will be most suitable for you, including health promotion officers, health informatics manager, or health primary health organization manager as well. So all these occupations were on the state nomination list, and it might be still remaining on the state nomination list as well. So you can have that post your master's, or you can probably use the bachelor degree as well to get your skill assessment, and you can create your visa option.
All right, thank you, Tejas. Our next one relates to the 408 COVID visa. A guest wants to know about the eligibility criteria for this subclass.
For 408 visa, it depends on which category. There are 408 has a lot of options, by the way, right? And 408 has a lot of categories. But if you're talking about COVID visa, you just have to be working and your visa must be expiring in 28 days time. You should be working in any occupation which is on the critical list, or on the list for the 408 visa. But even though you're not working in that occupation, they are still the department tends to give you the work rights. But if you're not working, then in any critical sector, then we cannot assure that you'll get work rights to on the 408. But yes, these are the only requirement right now for under the COVID category, that you just have to, your visa must be expiring in the next 28 days.
Thank you, Weber. Sudeep wants to know, I have applied for my family-sponsored 491 visa from NSW in the field of accounting with 80 points, but currently he's residing in South Australia. Is there any chance of getting an invitation?
Sorry, what was the occupation?
Occupation is accounting with 80 points, currently residing in NSW, in South Australia, sorry.
For accountant 491 relative sponsorship, to be honest, almost nil to zero, or whatever you can say. There's no chance to get the invite, because we haven't seen any invitation even for 189, which is in the higher priority than the 491 relative sponsorship priority group over I think 2 years now. So there's not much chances for you in the 491 relative sponsorship. So you should work towards meeting the state nomination requirement. So if you are as a graduate, you can apply for 491 with 12 months of experience. If you are intestate graduate, you can apply for 491 in South Australia with 2 years of experience. So try to work in any of those two options rather than waiting for 491 relative sponsorship.
Thank you, Tejas. The next question is from Tarek, who is asking, I'm working as RMO GP in the hospital on limited registration for doctors. My hospital is happy to sponsor me. Am I eligible for 186, 187 or any other visa? I don't have full registration as of now.
I guess you can apply for an employer sponsorship visa, even though you don't have the full registration, as long as you have a limited registration to practice as a doctor. So yes, you can apply for a sponsorship.
Again, there are some repeated questions. Okay, there is a question from Mehek, who's asking that she's a marketing grad from Western Australia. Since marketing specialist is not on Western Australian list, which state should be better to move to on 485 visa now? No experience for now.
For marketing specialist, you can expect either South Australia, Northern Territory, or even Tasmania as well. You can also expect something from Queensland if you meet towards the SBO requirement, the small business ownership, if you want to explore that option. But I've seen a lot of marketing graduates from all over Australia moving to Adelaide because we do sponsor 190 and 491 both for marketing specialists.
The next question is from Sarvan, who is asking, I have the following options. Which one of them would be the best from PR perspective? 3 years Master in Social Work package in University of Tasmania, 2 years Associate Degree of Agribusiness in Tasmania, 2 years MSW in CDU, and 2 years MSW in Uni of South Australia.
MSW is Masters of Social Work.
Master Social Work, yeah.
So yes, South Australia is good, Tasmania is good. So if you study any accredited courses, after that, you can, so in Tasmania, it's very simple that you complete 2 years of study and apply for 190 nomination. With South Australia as well, complete 2 years of study in, let's say, Masters of Social Work and get a 3 months of work experience and get 190. So I would prefer these 2 states. I'm not too sure about Western Australia if social worker is on the list for graduates. So I wouldn't really comment on that much.
The next question is from Simran, who wants to know, who wants to come to Australia in 23. She wants to know which exam is more important, PT or IELTS, and which is the best state for civil engineering.
Anything is fine, IELTS or PT. In terms of the state to choose from, for jobs and future career, obviously bigger states, New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland would be better. In regards to the PR option, you can also expect something from New South Wales as per the recent trend, but it can change over the period because obviously you're planning to come after 2 years in 2023. So situation can be different, but obviously the bigger states will be always looking for skills in engineering area. You can also expect good, PR options from South Australia as well. So if you study Master of Engineering from here, then you can apply for 190 and 491 as well.
The next question is from Chitra, who is asking, I'm currently doing Master of IT, specializing data science at Charles Sturt University, Sydney. Instead of lodging 485, I'm planning to lodge another student visa. I'm planning to do Master of Teaching Secondary in NSW regional area. Is my plan a good one? In my case, skill assessment in IT is going to be very difficult because I have more maths components than IT.
So if you have studied a master's in IT, right? So what was the name of the course, Agam?
A Master of IT specializing in data science.
Yeah, so you're likely to get a skills assessment in IT anyway. So I wouldn't really study and spend another 2 years as well as the money that I'm going to spend on that course just to get a PR, because you still have a very good chances of getting a permanent visa through your IT degree itself. So let's say, and if you're not too confident on getting an assessment, you can go for a pre-assessment as well, which is called a 485 skills assessment with ACS. They will then assess your qualifications, say that which occupations you will qualify for, and then you can study professional here. And then let's say if you don't think you can get enough points in Sydney, then move to Canberra or South Australia and meet the state admission criteria from there, or even go to regional New South Wales. So I wouldn't really study the entire 2 years again.
The next question is from Sam, who's asking, what do you think of 189 visa with 90 points for software engineer in Queensland?
Look, Queensland has been following the primary skill occupation list, the PM as well. So they have been very focused on certain occupations itself. You just have to wait how they respond to the next financial year planning. If they keep the similar trend, then obviously IT is part of the primary migration skill occupation list, PM as well. So you can expect the invite as long as you meet all the other requirements. So what you can do is obviously as soon as the Queensland Department of Immigration announced the next financial year planning levels and occupation list, you can get in touch with one of our offices in Brisbane and they can help you out further.
The next question is from Mariam, who's asking, I have done BS Honours in Zoology. With what visa scheme is good for me in Australia for settlement purpose?
So it depends on obviously it's very limited information that you've given. So number one, you need to apply for a skills assessment. So for a geologist, you need to have at least, I think, 1 year of work experience to get a positive skills assessment. And if you get a positive skills assessment, then you also have to wait for the state nomination programs to open up for offshore candidates. Now, generally, South Australia do accept applications from offshore applicants when they are open normally, pre-COVID situation I'm talking about. So, after I think the COVID pandemic is over, you might be able to get a state nomination from Tasmania or Northern Territory or South Australia, where with simply a job offer, you can get a state nomination.
Okay, so the next question is from Mo, who's asking, what are the chances for 190 with 90 plus 5 in system analyst and doing job in IT?
It depends on the state, but yeah, good chances if you're based in New South Wales. And eventually, if Victoria comes up with the occupation, which is including your occupation list your occupation as well, then very good chance. If you're based in South Australia, you have a good chance for 190 as long as you are meeting the as a graduate category and 3 months of post-study full-time experience. Then you can apply for 190. So it depends on the, your physical location and the employment details. We can assist you further.
The next question is from Avinash, who is asking, what are the chances for materials engineer at 75 points for 189 and 190? Which states are best for 190 materials engineer?
I think materials engineer 189 is not very good chances because does not have very good chances because your cutoff points are very high generally in most of the times. But yes, you never know. You still can expect, be hopeful, but be optimistic as well. But at the same time, if you are asking about the state nomination, I would say maybe South Australia is better option for materials engineer. Because I think if you work 6 months in South Australia, you can get a 491 nomination easily. Even regional New South Wales will be a good option too.
The next question is from Prasad, who is asking he's on 2 years 485 visa. Which is the better option to go for? Social work versus trade course like diesel, engineering, mechanic?
Look, to be honest, both of them are very different dynamics in terms of your career options. Diesel mechanic, obviously, it's good in-demand occupation in most of the states, especially in the regional area. So you can apply for that, or if you are interested in terms of working in a social work or community sector management area, then you can go with the social work. Keep in mind, masters of social work or bachelor of social work will be 2 years or 3 years of qualification, whereas certificate trained motor mechanics and diesel heavy vehicle technology will be either 1 year or 1.5 year or up to 2 years course. So you will save these a huge difference in terms of costing, career options, as well as your the fees as well. So it depends on you.
Thank you. The next question is from Deena, who's from India, currently working at one of the reputed institution in Department of Social Work. She says, I have experience of working as social worker as well. So what are the possibilities to get 491 visa?
Very good chances again. So first thing is you have to apply for a skills assessment where you need to have a bachelor's degree plus 2 years of work experience so that you can get a skills assessment as a social worker. Now, after you get a skills assessment, you have to wait. If you have a 5 years of work experience in overseas, then you can apply for a New South Wales offshore category, which will open in future, but obviously we don't know when.
Our next question is from Raza. He is a chemical engineer, has applied for 189 or 95 points, and has also applied for 190 with 100 points. Should he move to a regional area or just wait in Sydney? His PT will expire in May 22.
So which was the what was the occupation?
Occupation was a chemical engineer with 95 points on 189 visa and 100 points for 190 in Sydney.
For 189, he can expect some movement if Department of Home Affairs obviously start the focus on 189 for especially the engineering occupation, which they did last year in July. But in terms of the state nomination, again, it depends if New South Wales will be prioritizing the other engineering occupations or not. So you can either explore also the option of having the skill assessment into different occupation as well, if that's going to help you. But you can expect some movement in 189 next month if obviously 189 will be coming back more normal invitation, which is less likely, but you can expect some movement in 189 in July.
Thank you, Tejas. Our next question is from Chaminda. Based on the sessions he's seen, securing 190 visa for offshore is a difficult option. If we don't have an employer sponsorship and have 80 points for 190 as software engineer plus a skill assessment, has tried to seek employer sponsorship in the last few years, but he couldn't get any. What are the other ways he can secure employer sponsorship?
It's an offshore applicant, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for offshore application, as accept the employer sponsorship, the only option you have is going for a skill visa, right? Now for the skill visa as well, as we mentioned earlier as well, that right now the borders are closed. That's why offshore migration programs from most of the states are also on hold. So until they start those programs again, you won't have such options. For now, I would say keep applying for the jobs. I'm sure that one or the other employer would wanna sponsor you.
Thank you for the insight, Vaibhav. Our next question has been requested for Tejas by Saad. He has a total of 100 points, including 15 points for state sponsorship. Has a skill assessment in mechanical engineering, also has superior English. Occupation is also in critical list. He has a relevant 9 months experience in his field offshore. Do you think he can get a 491 visa in South Australia through independent talent stream?
Good chances. You can obviously lodge an expression of interest to apply for the independent talent stream, but honestly, today was the last day in terms of for this financial year. Since they're closing down for this financial year today itself, and they would be changing some of the program, including the talent and innovation through 491 or 190. So you really have to wait until at least 19th of July when Immigration SA either open up the program again or a bit earlier if they announce any changes. As long as you meet those requirements, you can lodge an expression of interest. In regards to how competitive your EOIs are, or your EOIs basically, you should be increasing your points if possible by either getting higher score in English or something else, because your experience is not very significant. So under the independent talent stream, obviously Immigration SA expects anything between 3 to 5 years of experience if they want to be really successful. But I've seen a couple of cases recently where they have got to invite with the lesser experience as well, because they're already working in South Australia. So there are different factors also in this area, but you can wait until 19th of July and try to increase your points, but you will have good chances.
Thank you so much, Tejas. Our next question is from Thomas. He really likes the session and is thanking us for conducting it. He's also asking about family sponsorship, and he's been told that there's no chance for him to get a PR under the 491 family sponsorship program with an accounting degree. Is there any other pathway that he can choose? He's currently living in metropolitan Victoria, working in a mobile repair industry, and been here for 2 years. He believes he's a technician, he can be eligible for getting a PR. Also, he doesn't mind moving interstate. His boss is also happy to help him get a PR. Is there any other job occupation that might be able to help him? Or will it be easier for him to be a technician? Is it possible to lodge a PR with the accounting degree? Will he be eligible to be an internal auditor? As an internal auditor, currently doesn't require a CPA assessment.
Now, for internal auditor, it's definitely no, because you need 1 year of work experience to get a skills assessment as an internal auditor. Number two, let's say you can apply for, you have a skills assessment as an accountant, and if you're happy to move interstate, then you should consider moving to regional New South Wales or South Australia or Northern Territory or Tasmania. These are the 4 states where you can qualify for a state domination, right? Alternatively, if your company is happy to sponsor, for now you can go on a 482 visa with the company as a hardware technician. Because you said you have 2 years of work experience as in mobile repair shop. So if you can show that you're a hardware technician, definitely you can go for a 482 visa, but that doesn't lead to a permanent visa. So again, if your company has a branch in a regional Victoria, yes, definitely you can later on go for a skills assessment as a hardware technician and go for a 494 visa. and then get a PR after 3 years, which is a very lengthy process. So while you have an option to get a sponsorship from your employer, I wouldn't take it. I would rather go to regional New South Wales and work in accounting field to get a nomination, or go to Tasmania and study 1 year, or go to South Australia and work there, or study 1 year there as well, or go to Northern Territory if you have a 485 visa left for 12 months, work there, live there for 12 months and work there for 6 months in accounting field and get a nomination for 491 from Northern. So you can probably try any of these options, and I would rather go as an accountant. Last case scenario, if you want to study something else, you can study diploma in nursing, where, in, let's say, for example, in South Australia, and work 3 months after that and get a 491 nomination, study diploma in nursing in Tasmania, 2 years. So you can get so generally in Tasmania, the diploma in nursing is 2 years. So as soon as you complete, you can get a 190 visa.
Thank you, Vaibhav. Our next question is from Yogesh. He wants to know how much time is it taking for ENS 186 direct entry stream for developer programmers, which is on the priority list.
Look, in terms of the processing time, there are multiple factors. Obviously, these ICT occupations are under the PM as well, which means they should be prioritized. But it also means how decision ready your application is. So you have to double check that you are meeting all the document requirements for the time of submission and at the time of visa grant requirement as well, including medicals, police clearances, all the financial documents for your nomination for your employers. So you really have to make sure that every documents are submitted for the Department of Home Affairs officers to prioritize your application. Because even though your occupation might be on a priority list, but if your application is incomplete, and then obviously they will not be able to do it under priority. They will send you a further request, which will delay your process.
Thank you, Tejas. Our next question is from Drishti. She's done her MBA in Torrens Uni, Adelaide, and also got a job as a programmer project administrator. So she wants to know if she's on her right track to getting her PR.
So did you say MBA?
Yes, that's right.
And working as a programmer?
Yes, programmer project administrator.
Okay, so if you are working as a project, because programmer project administrator is a bit confusing whether it's IT occupation or it's a management occupation. So if you're working as a project administrator, after 1 year of work experience, you can apply for a skills assessment as a project administrator, right? Which is programmer project administrator, and get a skills assessment in that occupation. And because you're living and working in South Australia and you studied there, you can get a 190 or 491 nomination from South Australia. Very easy case.
All right. Thank you so much. Our next question is from Vishal. He has finished his master's in networking and now he's on a 485 bridging visa. He has an electronic and communications degree from India and is now going to get his Bachelor of Technology assessed. Is that going to help him or not? And he's currently residing in Melbourne.
Yeah, definitely. He can get the Bachelor of Electronics and Telecommunication assessed in different occupations, including electronics engineering or telecommunication engineering occupations, or even technologist occupation, and then see if he can apply for skill state nomination through either 190 or 491 program in different states, including South Australia. So the difference is obviously if he use master's qualification in South Australia, he needs 1 year of experience. If he used bachelor's, which is engineering, he would only require 6 months of experience for 491. So definitely he should be exploring both of the options.
Thank you, Tejas. Our next question is from Jace. He's currently in Kuwait working as a plant engineer. He has already submitted his EOI a while ago for 189 as well as 190. Unfortunately, his points are at 75, including the 5 points from state nomination. What are the chances of him getting his 491 visa, and what state would be good for this occupation?
As Jace, as we mentioned earlier, that right now, yes, your occupation is really good because production and plant engineer is on a priority in New South Wales especially. But right now, because you're offshore, the most of the state nomination program are closed, right? But NSW has a 491 option if you have 5 years of work experience. And you can apply for a 491 nomination with New South Wales once they start accepting the applications from offshore candidates.
The next question is from Dimitri. Almost everyone here is asking about chances of getting PR with 80-90 points. What if I have 65 only? How does that affect my chances?
Look, to be honest, for most of the state nominations, except New South Wales or in some cases Victoria, really point doesn't really matter, and Western Australia as well. Sorry. If I talk about particular South Australia, Northern Territory, even Tasmania, they mainly focus on minimum skill select points as long as you meet the additional requirements. Every state has a specific requirement for certain occupations, so you have to meet that. Most of the states are not expecting you to have very high points. As long as you meet the point table requirement and you meet their additional requirement for your occupation, then state will be able to sponsor you. When I talk about South Australia in particular, let's say most of the occupations are being sponsored at 65 or maximum 75 points, except the independent talent program where it requires 90 points. As long as you meet 65 or 75 points, you would be able to apply for state nomination, considering that you meet the additional requirement of being either as a graduate or working in a regional area or working in a South Australia category. For state nomination programs, having high points not always required, depending on your location, basically.
Okay, the next question is from Megha, who is saying that she's in Perth right now and is on 485 visa, valid till September 22, and of course another year of extension after that. I have 80 points on me at the moment, and I'm trying for another 10 through PTE and 5 by getting experience in my field. Completed my master's in electronics and communications. What is the best way for me, 189 or 190? Should I wait for a few more months till November, December? Do you think immigration is going to come up with lenient conditions?
See, because you're in Western Australia and you've studied in Western Australia for 2 years, your chances of getting a nomination from Western Australia is very high for 190, right? With 189, it really depends on the invitation rounds. Now, because the invitation rounds are only happening every 3 months, it's very hard to judge or predict the cutoff points because it's a very long time in between where a number of people would have been added up. But yes, your chances of 190 Western Australia is very good. And after you add up your PT points and work experience points, that is going to really be a very good chance to get an invite for you, right? And regarding the leniency, I guess overall, if you're onshore, you will definitely see some leniency coming in, not because the department is going to ease the criteria, but because eventually the competition is going down. Not many people are coming from overseas right now, so you're only competing with people who are onshore. So as the traffic gets cleared, there is less competition, and that means you have better chances of getting the invites, right? So as the time goes ahead, and if the borders are closed, definitely is going to help onshore candidates in getting the nomination easily.
Thank you. The next question is from Yadvinder Singh. Hi, I've done my MPA and doing commercial cookery certificate for as well. IELTS overall 6.5, currently on bridging visa in Queensland. Any chance to get 491 or 190 in any state?
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? You have 2 occupations you can work on. In terms of accountants, you can explore options either in South Australia and regional New South Wales as well, Tasmania as well as Darwin. In terms of your cook or chef occupation, you can expect invitations from any of these states, which I mentioned earlier. You can also work towards a small business ownership category in regional Queensland as well. They can sponsor you 491. We have done a separate session on accountants PR pathways in afternoon, which will be covered, like we'll be posting on our YouTube channel later on as well. You can watch that session, which will give you additional information about accountants. But you can also explore options as a chef and including the SBO category in Queensland.
Thank you. So our next question is from Nav, who says, I've recently completed MPA and doing professional year, not working, any chance of 190, living in Western Australia, and I have 70 points in total. Can you suggest me what should I do now?
So if you're not able to find a job, then yes, it's going to be challenging because Western Australia requires you to have a job in your field. But if you can get a job, then your chances of getting the nomination from Western Australia is really good. If you don't think you can get that, then maybe you might want to consider moving to another state, which includes a lot of options. Like let's say if you want to study, it will depend on those options. If you want to go and work in another regional area in accounting, then it depends on which way you want to go. And there will be a lot of pathways then, because if you're getting out of Western Australia, you can choose to study, let's say, diploma in nursing again in South Australia, or you can, if you have visa, or if you want to study, let's say, a master's course or something, you can also go for a master's of teaching, social work, different areas. Or if you have a full-time work rights, and if you want to move to NT, Regional New South Wales or South Australia as well, to find a job in accounting, and if you want to work there, that also is an option. So it really depends on which way you want to go. If not Western Australia, but I would say stick to Western Australia and try to get higher English language score and try to get a job there, a job offer, so that you can get a 190 nomination from Western Australia itself.
Sorry, I'm not sure if we have taken this question before, but I'm going to repeat it. It's from Prasad, who is an IT engineer from India, did masters in networking in Melbourne, got skill assessment from EA. Now, when he completes PY after masters, he'll get 5 points. Can these points be used for skill assessment from EA and lodging UI as engineering technologist?
It depends if your nominated occupation will be in the same field of your professional year as well. Let's say if you have done skill assessment from Engineering Australia, obviously, then if you have done your skill assessment, the professional program from engineering as well, then you can use that professional program 5 points towards your EOI. If you have done it from different field, then obviously you should not be able to use it.
The next question is from Nabila, who's asking, for partner skill assessment, do we need job experience? My partner has his bachelor degree in civil engineering from Pakistan, then did masters in geotechnical engineering from UK. Can he get a skill assessment as a geotechnical engineer based on the UK degree only, accredited pathway? The UK degree is an accredited one.
Yes, if your UK degree is accredited under Washington Accord, then you can simply apply for a skills assessment and get the skills assessment as a geotechnical engineer. If not, then you can also write down a CDI report and apply for a skills assessment as a civil engineer or geotechnical engineer, depending on the project reports that you have. But yes, in all cases, your partner can get the skills assessment and give you points.
The next question is from Sarvan. Can I claim 15 points if I have only 3 months of experience after finishing my 3-year Bachelor in Broadcasting Journalism from Malaysia? Will I get 15 plus 5 points for my accredited Masters in Social Work completed in Australia?
Yeah, I think you're confusing yourself with 2 different points claim. So because you have studied Masters in Social Work here in Australia, which is AQF level Masters, then you should be able to claim 15 points, which is highest either for Bachelor or Masters. You cannot claim both of points. So you'll get 15 points for your Masters in Australia, and then 5 points for 2-year studies in Australia in total. If you have studied from regional, then you can get additional 5 points for studying in regional as well.
Thank you so much, Vaibhav and Tejas, for answering everyone's questions in such great detail. I'm scrolling through and I think we've covered everything. The rest of them are pretty much repeated questions. Guys, if you enjoyed this session, please do make sure to review us. I've dropped the review link in the comment section below. If we didn't cover your question today, don't worry. Like I mentioned earlier, our consultants have your details while you registered. So we'll be getting in touch with you personally and making sure that all your queries and case-related details are taken care of by our experts in a private consultation. And while you're leaving a review, if you have any suggestions, if you have any topics that we didn't cover during the conclave, leave it below. And we do regular Facebook Live sessions as well as on Instagram and YouTube. So make sure you stay tuned to our social media pages. We'll definitely attempt to cover those topics then. And in the meantime, if you missed out any of the sessions during the conclave, make sure to check out our YouTube channel. All the sessions will be going live over there. So yeah, and feel free to leave any more inquiries on any of our social media pages. Our team will definitely look after it and send it over to the relevant branches. Hope you've enjoyed the last 2 days. Our teams have definitely worked very hard in putting together this virtual event. So thank you so much for joining and participating in our event.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vidhi. Thanks, Agam. And thanks, Vaibhav. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.